to the Solar Panel, the Phoenix Sun Show.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Suns Solar Panel. We're back to the early time slot this morning on the live show. So anybody who noticed, I tweeted out last night once, I've set it up on YouTube late last night. So hopefully everyone picks up on the show. That's okay. You can watch it later. We are just as good later. You just can't join in the chat. For those who are here, feel free to join in the chat, jump in. We'll be taking questions throughout the show. What we're going to do today is we're going to recap the Suns' first two games. But let's start with our introductions. My name is Dave King, and you find me at brightsideofthesun.com and at Dave King NBA on Twitter. Joining me today on the panel is first a regular guest. Love him. Been around the Suns forever and covered the team. PLR, how are you doing?
What's going on, gentlemen? It's another happy Saturday morning.
Another happy Saturday morning. And why are you so happy these days, PLR? Tell me what makes you happy these days.
I'm as giddy as a dancing George Jefferson. My eldest son.
George Jefferson. I was thinking George Jetson for a sec. Go ahead.
No. My eldest son was named Athlete of the Month in Akatillo and Awatuki Living News. So that just flying high right now. Thank you.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
Breeding athletes. I bred regular worker people, not athletes.
Well,
my girls turned to me one time. We were watching the Olympics, and they're like, "Dad, why didn't you raise us to be Olympic athletes?" I'm like, "Well, first you have to be athletic." So good on you, man.
Hey, well, you see, a lot of folks don't see me, but I have this stealth athletic frame. Well, it was like 40 years ago, but that's besides the point. It was in there. In fact, it's funny because I have a game with my youngest man today at a little after 9. So it never stops, Dave. It never stops.
Never stops. PLR is going to be here for at least a good half the show. So if you see him duck out and it's down to Jake and I, that's all right. That's time to introduce our next guest on the panel, Jake, Fallen Founder. How's it going, man?
Doing well. I love the support that you guys are talking about. I still remember back in the day when I told my dad, if I go out and I practice really hard on the basketball hoop outside, I could someday maybe play in the NBA. And without even looking up from his dinner, he said, "No, you're never going to make it." So, that was that tough love that was just missing in a lot of other households.
Also a reality check.
Exactly. Well, maybe it was because our driveway was actually like on an angle, so the hoop was actually, so I'd have to learn how to shoot sideways. So maybe he was just like, you can practice all you want. It's actually not going to help you.
For me, it wouldn't have mattered if the driveway was flat. So I did have a hoop in my backyard. I had a driveway. I played with my friends. I knew early on that it's really tough to get there as an NBA athlete if you're barely 6 feet and you can't jump any higher than Jared Dudley. So that's kind of it. That kind of limits your capabilities. I was always like more of a Boris Diaw type of basketball player anyway. Stick me in the middle. I could pass great. I could do a little bit of everything, but man, I am not going to beat you on the dribble up and down the court. That's for sure.
Hey, Jared Dudley is hope for chubby kids everywhere, so leave him alone.
Hey, I just saw him Wednesday night when the Suns hosted the Mavs. This is a good segue into our first segment. But when the Suns hosted the Mavs, Jared Dudley is an assistant on that team, and he was helping Luka Doncic warm up on court side. And yeah, he looks exactly like you would think he would look 3 years after retirement.
He's going to be a good head coach one day, though.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into the show. So enough about ourselves. Good morning, Jam. Good morning, Sawbucks. Good morning, all the other people in the chat. We really welcome you. We're glad you're here. And let's get it. Let's talk about the Phoenix Suns. My first observation, the Suns have played 2 games. Just a quick recap for those who are checked out and they only watch the Solar Panel, but not the Suns, which is, hey, that's great. That's awesome. The Suns are 1-1 after 2 games. They came back against the Mavs after the first half of that game, looking like a repeat of Game 7, and then the Suns just crawled back. And then in Game 2, They had an early lead against the Trailblazers, but the Trailblazers crawled back, and man, they played really well. And Damian Lillard had 41 points, and the Trailblazers beat the Suns by 2 in overtime. So the Suns are now 1-1 after 2 games. And we're going to go in depth on those 2 games, guys. So don't worry about the little minutia. But what's your 30,000 foot takeaway from this Suns team after 2 games that you could walk away at the end of the show? Every little thing you said adds up to that big takeaway. Start with Jake. What's your big takeaway after 2 games?
I'd say that Devin Booker, believe it or not, I think he's the real deal. I think he's going to be a good player someday. You know, he keeps working at it. He just might turn into something. No, I'll say Booker's looking great out of the gate. DeAndre Ayton, I think, has been looking fantastic. I think we're kind of, as fans, a little bit used to him starting slow and, you know, turning it on around the playoffs. So I've been liking kind of what I saw from him. Obviously, he didn't play that much in the first half of game 1, but I like what I'm seeing. And of course, I think the elephant in the room is the bench scoring and where it's going to come from. And
there's a bigger elephant, but yes, that is one elephant for sure.
Well, that's the elephant I'm looking at and
Gotcha.
His name's Cameron Payne. And I think those guys are going to need a little bit of help because Lee can't be the hero every night.
That's true. PLR, what's your big overarching takeaway of the Suns after 2 games this year?
That that this team will miss a consistent third scorer. And I know we're supposed to say Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Ayton, but I don't want to rely on Chris Paul at the stages as the third scorer. So they're missing that other guy. And my elephant in the room is I think Mikal's game is developing, but I don't think it's developed offensively enough to be that person. I just think they need one more on a night when, say, Devin is struggling or Ayton is in foul trouble. Who can they go to? And there's no one in that starting lineup that they can just hang their head on and say, go get me some buckets. So that's standing out to me.
Yeah, we've got some comments on the chat on what their biggest takeaways are. Book coming for MVP from Sunderous Dunks. You've got Ted Lubin saying, I saw signs of life in that team, but also that CP3 looks old. Of course, you've got the Sawbucks telling it's too early to tell. Oh, yeah, we know. But we're doing a podcast, so we're doing early overreactions. That's what we do. Cam Johnson got to get it together. Sunderous, yes. So, look, man, here's my biggest overall takeaway. My biggest overall takeaway is unless something dramatically changes, which it could because it's only 2 games in, the Suns team looks different and not necessarily better than last year's Suns team. And let me explain why. Just different. They look like they are learning a new offense and they're learning a new defense with their personnel that are basically the same for the last 2 years. This offense does not focus on Chris Paul pounding the ball almost the entire time, bringing the ball up all the time, setting up the offense. This offense does not involve Devin Booker playing off ball almost the entire time. He led the league in points per touch last year because he didn't touch it enough. And it also, last year's Suns team did not rely on DA at all, DeAndre Ayton at all in the second half. And this year, almost every single fourth quarter possession goes through DA at some point. DeAndre Ayton. So this is a completely different team. Now, is it better? Is it worse? At the moment, it's not as good. At the moment, because it's not proven. At the moment, they look uncomfortable. In Friday night's game, DA looked a little uncomfortable trying to make those free throws at the end of overtime when they needed both those to win the game. But we'll go even further into each of these. The bench, you know what, man, Sawbuck says, I wish we could have kept the 2021 bench. I've actually been fairly happy with what I've seen from some of those bench players. Obviously, Damian Lee hitting the game winner the other night, playing really good in Cam Johnson's absence. Cam Johnson's been dealing with different cramps and things like that. And then Cameron Payne has looked a little bit better than I expected, and Torrey actually made a couple of threes so far. So I'm not that disappointed in the bench. Here's the big elephant in the room for me, Chris Paul. Chris Paul is no longer, at least at this point, not all-star Chris Paul. This is aging point guard you can get from just about anywhere off the street. He did get 12 assists he's got 21 assists over the 2 games, 12 assists on Friday and 9 assists on Wednesday, but he hardly scoring. And he doesn't even want to take the shot. I mean, last year he didn't want to take shots. This year he wants to take even fewer. That's the big thing. And so when you say PLR, the Suns don't have a third scorer, that's absolutely right, because you've got Devin Booker as the top scorer, you've got DA as the secondary scorer, and then there's really nobody else who can step up and get you 20 a night or 18 a night consistently. It's going to always have to be someone different, and that's pretty stressful on a coach and also on the team as to who's going to be that third guy each night. And if it's always a different guy every night, do you know they're going to deliver in the fourth quarter? That's the problem if it's not a consistent guy. So that's my overall takeaways is this is a different team. It just looks different. So now let's break it down to each individual game. Let's look at each individual game. Friday night. When it got to halftime, well, late second quarter, the Suns are down 21. Halftime down 17, only because of a really fortunate turn of events right at the end of the half to get it down to 17. It shouldn't have even been 17. It should have been 21 at halftime. Down 22 a couple minutes into the third quarter. Down 15 again early in the fourth quarter. PLR, while you were watching that game, did you think that the Suns were dead? Like their core was done. They were done.
What's weird is I didn't, and here's why. Because they got embarrassed by this team last time. And even though they were losing, the difference between the two was it looked like they gave up in game 7. Whereas in this game, it didn't look like they gave up. Now, I didn't think Dallas was going to open the door and invite the vampire in, but I thought the Suns never gave up effort. And so that's where I saw a little bit of difference. And that's kind of what kept me watching, because if it was the anemic performance they had last time, I would have clicked that bad boy off. But I like the effort. So the effort was there.
Even when they were down 15 and down 22 and all that at different points, you were good with the effort at that point?
Well, I wasn't good with the execution at that point. Uh-huh. But it wasn't like I said, it wasn't that, oh crap, Dallas is about to put their foot all up in her ass again. It was when do you remember? Well, obviously you remember because we were sitting next to each other last year during game 7, when Dallas gave them a little crack to get in, they just bricked like 7 more shots. Whereas game 1, Dallas gave them a crack to get in and they took it. And then Dallas was back on their heels. So you always had the feeling, well, if this breaks right, they'll come back. Also, I think, Dave, a lot of that had to do, and Jake, a lot of that had to do with who they were playing. They did not want to be embarrassed on national TV by the last team that embarrassed them on national television. Well, so I think the fight would be different. Yeah, so I think the fight was going to be different.
I think Chris Paul was going to go down with the ship on Wednesday.
Yep.
I think Devin Booker did not want that ship to sink, and he had just enough guys around him to help him keep that ship afloat, to keep doing that analogy. All right, Jake, what's your takeaway when they were down 22 in the third, 15 in the fourth? What's your takeaway?
Yeah, so a good sports conspiracy theory. When I saw DA still sitting on the bench late in the first half, I was like, oh no. Monty and him didn't talk since the last time. It's coming back now, and they're not friendly together. And he quit on the team again, and he's not going to put him in. And I knew he had a little foul trouble, but as bad as things were getting, I thought, okay, it's time to call out the big guns. And DA finished so strong. But at halftime, there was something the Suns the last couple of years have had fantastic turnarounds. So I actually took a money line at halftime.
Did you?
and then won some nice money. But
nice.
Yeah, but no, there was it looked like that a lot of times only a couple guys on the court knew what was going on. I think that was a good description you had, that they're learning a new offense, learning some new defense.
At least
I think,
wrinkles, obviously not entirely new, but wrinkles.
Well, and you would have thought the way from how far back the Suns came, that they were lighting up the 3-point line, but it wasn't that. It was just, I mean, they still, the Mavericks still outshot them from the 3-point line and at a more efficient clip. And the Suns just came in and made smart plays and whittled it down. And then the momentum just got so much. I was actually a little bit worried towards the end of the third when it got very close. And then I think the Mavericks went back up, 6 or 8, that we might have run out of momentum, but they picked it right back up in the fourth.
Yeah, man, the Mavericks. And then that freaking Christian Wood went on a personal 16-2 run against the Suns over the Suns. Had cut it to 1.
And you're not a Wood believer, are you?
I'm not a Wood believer. And I tell you what, neither is Jason Kidd yet, because after that 15-point run, after that 16-2 run, Wood hardly played again.
Oh, I guess I didn't even notice.
And he came back in with 2 minutes left, didn't make a shot, and got owned on defense.
Well, he got me my fantasy points, so I was good with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you go with the fantasy stuff, sure. Jason Kidd's trying to win games. So I'm not saying me and Jason Kidd is on the same wavelength. I'm just saying that Christian Wood has not earned it yet in crunch time, and Kidd's somebody who's going to make him earn it. Now, will Christian Wood develop into a really great all-star level guy who maximizes his talent this year? Possibly, but very small likelihood. He's on his 8th team. So let's not suddenly crown him. As Dallas writers were saying, he's the best number 2 Luka's ever had. Well, that just says more about the number 2s Luka's had than anything else. Okay, so I've got some takeaways from game 1, and I wanted to get you guys' input. Obviously, the Suns did come back. They forced that comeback from down 15 early in the fourth quarter to winning by 2 at the end. How did they do that? Well, almost all of that was done with Devin Booker as point book. Chris Paul was given his normal rest at 6:41 left in the fourth quarter. The Suns were down, I think, almost the full 18 or 15. Maybe they were down 12 or something at the time. Maybe it was 11, actually. That's how I remember. They were still down 11. Chris Paul takes his rest. Campaign comes in. Damian Lee was already in there. He stays in there because why? Because Cam Johnson had a cramp and couldn't play the rest of the fourth quarter. So you've got Book, DA, and Mikal, the big 3, and then 2 bench guys. And they came back and they almost couldn't be stopped defensively by Dallas's defense. They almost couldn't be stopped. And they had enough stops to overcome a 15-point deficit in 8 minutes. That was pretty incredible. PLR, what did you think of Point Book?
Well, I mean, Book can do just about anything. I like the way he ran the game. I like the way everything went through him. Here's my problem, though, with that too much. I don't want to wear him out game 1, game 2, game 3. They legitimately need to find another point if Cam is not going to be the person. We know what Booker can do, right? But Booker, every year, he has a little tightness in those legs too at some point. Mm-hmm. So I'm worried about how much we use him doing that. I mean, there's nothing that Booker is going to do at this point that's going to make me say, oh, wow, I didn't know he couldn't do that, because the guy works every offseason. Every year he gets better. Every year he adds something. So him running point will become obviously more and more fluid the more he does it. But I don't want him running point for any stretches more than, right. Give the point guard a rest or he's being pressed. So I like to answer your question directly? I think he's great at it. To give you the part B answer, but I don't want to see him doing it all game.
Not all game for sure. But what I thought was especially fun to watch in that fourth quarter was how did Dallas beat the Suns in games 6 and 7 when Chris Paul was equally ineffective in that playoff series? They trapped Book 25 feet out, 30 feet out, right? They trapped him hard and made him pass out, but the Suns couldn't do anything with those pass outs. Mm-hmm. Nobody ran toward the ball. Nobody came up halfway, caught the short roll, and then finished either scoring or passing. they had that in spades on Wednesday night. The Suns had obviously learned from how they lost in that, specifically to Dallas in that last playoff series. If Book's going to get trapped, then he's going to be able to pass out quickly. He knows how to get to, and DA was the recipient of those passes most of the time. And DA's made some really nice passes to the corners or to cutters off that short roll, or he actually drove in himself and he took very few mid-range shots. That was really, really good to watch DA in that game as that facilitator when Book got trapped. So I really enjoyed watching that. And that is a complete change from the playoff loss. Now that's just one defense, and Book again used the reference to junk defenses. He has a healthy disdain for any defense that isn't a standard man-on-man defense, or standard pick and roll defenses or whatever it is. He has a healthy disdain for it. Obviously, he got very famous for saying, "Why are you double teaming me in the gym in the summer?" years ago. But he has a big disdain for what he calls junk defenses. Is anything where it's unexpected and it's generally not effective, but the Suns just don't know how to beat it. Guess what's another junk defense is zone. And we'll talk about that when we get to Friday's game. They still haven't solved that one, but they did solve the trap Book at midcourt on Wednesday night. And DA did a really great job because there was nobody right at his feet when he caught the ball, right? Because they were doubling hard out at midcourt. And so he was able to stop, think, and do something within really quickly, but he still didn't have anyone at his feet ready to body him up and have him make a decision before he moved again on the catch. So that was really good on Wednesday night. I liked that. And obviously Damian Lee coming up big. 3 threes and the game winner in the fourth quarter. Raise your hand if you thought Damian Lee was going to be the third scorer in the fourth quarter for the Suns. Any hands up? You saw Damian Lee in that lineup and you're like, shit.
Well, I was hoping he was going to bring a little bit of that Splash Brother mentality. I just didn't know we were going to see it in game one. He's not Klay Thompson. He's not Curry. But, that mentality of be ready to catch and shoot and be explosive, he did bring that. So it's good to see.
Yeah. And as Ted Lubin in the chat brought up, I don't want to ignore the defensive side. The Suns really stepped up on effort level on defense in the second half, absolutely chasing the Mavs off of their favorite spots and all that. They did a really good job, but it's just more interesting what changes they had in their offense to come back and beat the Mavs in that Wednesday game. What other takeaways did you guys have from the Wednesday game? I've got a couple, but I'm going to open it up to you. PLR?
Dave, you said something which actually I had a different takeaway. But when you said they were ready for the trap with Booker, wouldn't that have been an indictment on Monty if they weren't ready, though? I mean, more than saying
it was already an indictment on Monty that they weren't ready for it by game 7 of the last series. He'd seen it 3 straight games, 4 straight games.
So I'm saying if you didn't make the adjustment on the first, when that schedule came out, if that wasn't one of the things that you circled on your board to make sure you can handle, I think that's would be more than an indictment on him.
Good. It's good though. They actually learned and that's good. Yes.
So that was my point. But I was like, and so I know I can't say the whole show, but that indictment will grow, and I'm sure you guys will get on it in game 2 when you talked about the zone. That indictment is starting to grow on how are you never ready for a zone when you know they're going to throw it at you, when everybody knows you're not the best
we'll get to zone
team to shoot threes. So
yeah. What other takeaways did you have from game 1? I just want to make sure we go through everything we saw in that game first.
Well, I was just going to say, I know that all the talk radio shows were talking about Chris Paul not being in, on the court during crunch time. That they Monty let him ride the pine, and they went with kind of the hot hand, keeping Lee in there, for example. I had no problem with his decision. In fact, I thought that was the best development decision from Monty that I've seen.
His ability to actually stick with that decision and make it, yes.
Yeah, and Paul, I think there was a concern that Paul would have been just furious about that, but he, body language wise, the few times it panned over there, and they're like, "Why isn't Chris Paul still in?" He was clapping, he was, coaching up the team, and I think he realizes that it's going to help him. I mean, gosh, so he hasn't hit a 3-pointer yet this year in the first 2 games. His legs kind of look tired from shooting from range already. I mean, his mid-range game is always fine, but those threes, I mean, it just, I don't know. I've got too much flashbacks from the playoffs of just tired Chris Paul trying to chuck up a 3-pointer. So I hope he doesn't get more than 30 minutes in a single regular season game. Now, obviously that was just broken with last night's game, but that was overtime. So, I'd say give him a little extra run, but
he was at 31 going into overtime.
Yeah. So I think that's great. That's exactly where it should be. He should not be. He was 34, 35 minutes. And that's PLR talked about it too. I'm going to be a little bit worried. Booker's over 40 minutes each game so far. And again, the overtime, but let's cut that back. And so I know Shamit's been out, and I don't want to say come back soon, Landry, but if you can just spot these guys another 10 minutes, I think that's going to be fantastic for them to kind of maintain that explosiveness when they need it in crunch time.
Jake, let me give you an example of this, and Dave and I can relate more than you can. When you see that discount for 55 and older, and you're like 49, you're like, damn it, I don't want. No, I'm not 55, and that's Chris Paul like last year. Now, when you're like 54, you're like, I can't wait to get that discount. That's Chris Paul sitting on the bench saying, I can't wait to get those couple extra minutes. Your mind changes every year because your body tells you the truth. No matter what you want to do, your body will tell you the truth. And I think he's come to the point that he knows he can't play 35, 36 minutes a game for, 78, 80 games and still be fresh. I think his mind has come to that. So if Monty is riding the hot hand, all he cares about is get the win.
Yeah.
And that's great from Monty. We were calling for that in the playoffs last year, weren't we? I mean, It was Monty's going to need it. He trusts
part of the
Paul.
Playoffs problem was campaign was so awful. He'd already been benched, so you can't bench both point guards. Although you didn't really need. Campaign did not play point guard on Wednesday. He just played body. He just played floor stretcher because Devin Booker was the point guard. Devin Booker in that 840 something where he was the last 641 where Chris Paul sat. Devin Booker had 7 points and 6 assists. It only took 3 shots and he had 6 assists to close out that game. I think that's pretty incredible. And that's a good kudos for Devin Booker. And you're right, not in big doses, not all game PLR. I totally agree with you. I've never been a fan of Point Book. He is a little bit fragile. He does have a history of pulling hamstrings, but when you need something in the crunch time and that team is a bad matchup for Chris Paul, then it's good to be able to go to Point Book, and Monty finally learned how to do that. Now, a couple of other takeaways I had from that Wednesday game was DeAndre Ayton was a huge difference maker. So one of the reasons the Suns got down 20, 21, 22 in that first half was because they had to play Jock Landale and Bismack Biyombo because DeAndre Ayton got 3 early fouls. He only played 7 of the first half's 24 minutes. And Luka was just eating up those switches on those guys, killing the Suns on that. And then when Ayton played in the second half, Luka was a minus 25 for the second half. Did you guys know that? Luka on the court in the second half was a minus 25. Oh. DeAndre Ayton played all but 1 minute in the second half. He got a little 1 minute breather toward the end of the third. Of course, that's when Chris Wood started his run. But man, he played almost that entire second half. I thought he was great in these 2 games. I thought DeAndre Ayton was great in these 2 games. Now any other observations from Friday that we haven't touched on yet? I mean, Wednesday's game that we haven't touched on yet.
I know we'll get into it a little bit for last night's game, but I'm hoping that Cam Johnson, if he's not going to be very effective scoring, he's got to be more effective doing something else. And
how about just staying on the court?
Yeah. But helping out. We talked about this last year too. Crowder was not much of a rebounder, but he could at least body somebody up and help, DA or somebody else get to the ball. Cam's going to have to, if his shot's not going down, if things aren't working for him, he's going to have to try and fill up the stat sheet in another way.
Yeah, I don't know what's up, Cam Johnson. Oh, here's another takeaway that we haven't even brought up yet, and I think, PLR, you mentioned it really quickly early on. Then I told you to wait until we get down to minutia. PLR, tell me what you thought of Mikal Bridges Wednesday night.
Okay. See, I'm going to sound like the Mikal hater, and I'm not the Mikal hater. I love what Mikal does. I love what Mikal does in general for this team, but I don't think he understands what's needed in spots. So there are a couple times where they really could have used him more offensively, and he just doesn't understand now is my time. And I don't think that's because he necessarily can't. I think he's always been such a defensive-minded, team-minded person. He doesn't understand there are times where you can be selfish, which makes you unselfish. And I don't think he's figured that out yet offensively. And there were just a couple times, I don't remember the minute mark, but I saw him touch the ball, and I'm like, dude, you didn't even look at the rim. Like, your first thought was like, get it out of my hands and get the ball to somebody else in a good spot. And it's like, dude, shoot the damn ball. Get to the rim. Your mid-range has become pretty decent. I love that little spin move that he makes, or that little fake that he makes, and he's up. It's like, dude, just do it. Even if you miss it, they have to respect it. So that's my biggest takeaway from it, because I'm a big Mikal fan. Just offensively, come on, dude.
Yeah, definitely. He's taken it back. He's kind of in the in-between. He's stuck in the in-between offensively. He's trying to develop his drive and score, get into the paint and score game. He knows he's really good at cutting. He knows he's good at making threes on spot up threes, but he's not staying back there anymore. He's actually didn't even take a three this Friday. It's a little weird how little he's taking on threes and standing there waiting to make that 3-point shot. But here's where I'm impressed with Mikal. Where I'm impressed with Mikal is that dude is killing it in getting contested rebounds. He's got 19 rebounds, 18 rebounds in 2 games. When was the last time Mikal had 18 rebounds over 2 games? He's never.
Is this a stat me, Dave?
This is a stat me, Dave. Man, I got to go find that little thing here.
Dave, stat me. Dave, stat me.
I gotta hit it double because I waited too long. Yeah. Mikal has never had an 18 rebound stretch in 2 games in his career. 11 tied his career high with 11 rebounds on Wednesday. Got 7 more on Friday. He also got 6 assists in the Friday game. The dude is really killing it everywhere but scoring. And I've been very impressed with that. I think Mikal is trying to do every little thing it takes to win games, as long as he doesn't have to score a whole lot. He's definitely not your number 2 or 3 scorer and doesn't really care to be. Now, we've given DeAndre Ayton crap for years for not being an alpha on scoring. And even on Friday night, Ayton passed out of an open shot where he could have actually driven to the hoop. But Mikal is even worse on wanting to find his shot out of nowhere. Like, he just can't do it. That's not his mentality. So there is a bit of an issue with that. Mikal is averaging 13 points a game, which is basically his career average, but he's not stepping up, and the guys need somebody to step up. Where is Mikal really doing well, though? On the rebounds. 18 rebounds in 2 games, 7 assists in 2 games. He's averaging, he's got a plus 15 from Friday night's game and a plus 6, from Wednesday night's game and plus 6 from Fridays. He's doing well, but he's not your third scorer.
Well, and he's shooting efficiently too. 55% on the season so far through the 2 games. It's not. I'd like to see him put a few 3-pointers down. It frustrates me so much when he's got those open looks.
Season.
Yeah. But on the 2s and those rebounds, you're right, Dave. I did notice that, especially in Wednesday's game, of just all of a sudden the ball would go up and you'd see all the players trying to rebound, and Mikal comes up with it. And I thought, oh, that's a nice change, something I'm not used to seeing.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good move. All right, let's move to Friday's game. So Friday, the game 2, the Suns came out with a win. I predicted last Saturday that the Suns were going to go 1-1 this week. They were either going to have a spirited win on Wednesday and lay an egg on Friday, or they were going to lay an egg on Wednesday and come back with a spirited win Friday. It's just tough to win both games when you're in this weird spot like the Suns are right now. So I think I expected them to lose on Friday. However, they had the lead for most of the game, including a 5-point lead with barely over a minute left in the second overtime. Or first overtime, sorry. Barely over a minute left in the first overtime. They had chances to win. Devin Booker had a bunny. He didn't score. You've got issues up and down the line with people being able to finish scoring. DA had issues, of course, getting that score done, getting that score at the end. But what did you guys think about their execution in that, even though they didn't make the shots like they had made them on Wednesday night? What did you guys think of their execution when they kept Chris Paul in the whole last 6 minutes and overtime, as if Monty was trying to show everybody he hasn't given up on Chris Paul yet? PLR, give us your takes on Friday's game before you got to go.
You know what? Honestly, that's the infamous. You took defeat from the jaws of victory. They had that game, and in all honesty, Chris Paul was more of a. To me, he was the reason they lost that game, because in overtime he couldn't stay in front of anybody, and for the first time ever watching him play, he was a liability on defense. He couldn't stay in front of, well, no one can stay in front of Dame, obviously, so that's unfair. But Anthony Simons couldn't stay in front of him, couldn't stay in front of anybody. And so Portland went from working to finding the soft spot and just making sure they weren't letting him off the hook. And that's my worry with this team. Like, if you just take that last 5 minutes with Chris Paul on defense towards the end of a game, and now I'm sounding like Pat Beverly. I just think that that is now their deficiency. And I hate to say it like that, but if you're going to give up that much, you got to do something more on the other end. It can't be a all or nothing anymore. So that one hurt. To be honest with you, that one bugged me, because I'm watching that game saying they're going to give this game away. I cannot believe they're going to give this game away. So that one really bothered me. And then I heard EJ say something about DeAndre should have went up with the left hand and dunked. I'm going to give him, for all those people that watched, and I'm a big EJ guy, but I'm going to give the big fella a pass on that one, because that side of the basket, probably something he's never done before. He just has to hit his free throws. That's a whole other, pressure. I'll say this real quick. I always tell my teams, pressure does two things: makes diamonds and cracks eggs. Don't be the egg. And that, in that time, he was the egg.
Yeah, I think he's got a good mentality for pressure situations. I do. It's just that in 4 years, he's never been in that pressure situation, because the Suns have not been passing him the ball in the last few minutes. And I think they've made a conscious decision that with Chris Paul being limited, that he is going to get more chances in the fourth. And I think he's going to play better in those crunch minutes in future games than he did this time. Now, obviously, he was still good, still real good. He had a 3-point play earlier in crunch time. He did really play well. But at the very end, with 1 second left in the game, Devin Booker passes him a shot in traffic, gives him a bounce pass in traffic, and he's supposed to go up against the 500-pound Yusuf Nurkic and another couple of swipers coming from other corners and finish that shot. And he took the foul. He took the foul that they wanted him to take. I mean, telling a guy he should have been able to finish through contact is like saying you should have been able to survive walking through the fire. I mean, just because you do doesn't mean you should, right? And that's tough to be able to finish with all that physicality going on in there in those final seconds. Then, so DeAndre gets the free throws. And you know what? Devin Booker has missed make two to tie free throws in the final seconds. Chris Paul has missed make 2 to tie in final seconds of games. This says nothing about DA's ability to be able to make free throws in crunch time. Those are really, really tough to make. But Devin, it doesn't help when Damian Lillard goes up and whispers in his ear or yells in his ear, "Hey man, you know they don't trust you. You know that, right?" Did you hear about this? Somebody lip reading? Apparently lip reading. We don't know if he actually said that.
Well, that's
no, didn't know about that.
Yeah. He was yelling at DA from behind, and DA was ignoring him. Someone said they lip read that, you know, they don't trust you, right? He says after the game that he was just asking, have you ever been in this situation before? You know, gently. So he was admitting that he was trying to get on
Wrong time.
into DA. And you know what? It's okay to not make both free throws to tie with a second left in the game. Every player in the league has missed those shots. So I think DA is going to get better at it. And I'm glad they're doing it both games in the fourth quarter, feeding DA, because he's the one who has the highest efficiency on the entire team. He's the one most likely to make a shot in the entire team. So I think that's really great. That has changed a little bit. Dame said after the game what he said, but he didn't give quotes. And I think it was a little bit more trash talk than what Dame said he said. And that's okay. That's Dame's job to get in the ear of a free throw shooter. And it's DA's job to deal with it. That's just it.
Hey, that was a beautiful pass, though. That pass by Book was a beautiful pass.
Yeah, and you know what? He should have been fouled hard, and he should have been put on the free throw line. Everyone did their job in that game. The guy who didn't do his job was Jock Landale. He got the offensive rebound on the second miss and completely completely missed the layup.
You know, Jock should have just gone up with two hands and dunked it, 360 style.
Yeah, why didn't he do that?
Why didn't he do it?
We judging Jock for how he took that shot with half a second left.
Exactly.
Well, before I get out of here, I'm going to say this. If your name is Jock, well, damn it, you're supposed to hit that shot.
That's right. If you're a Jock, you're supposed to hit that shot. All right, PLR, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know you got to go. Folks, don't leave. Jake and I are going to stay. I know you're disappointed PLR's leaving, but that's all right. We're going to stay behind. We're going to finish talking about game 2. We're going to preview next week as well, so stick around.
So we're going to put Chris Paul on the bench is what you're saying, Dave.
Yeah. PLR,
thanks,
you're
guys.
Chris Paul. Go sit down.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Take care.
That's it.
Bye. All right, Jake. So Friday night's game. What did you see? What little things did you see from the team that you liked or disliked on Friday night's game?
Well, I talked about it a little bit with the last, but what is going on? So I caught more the radio broadcast because I was driving around during the game a little bit last night. And what is keeping Cam Johnson off the floor this time?
You know what? I don't think that was reported of what's keeping him this time specifically. I'll have to look that up. But anyway, He's obviously dealing with something. He had cramps in the Wednesday game and was totally clear to play on Friday. And then on Friday, he took a charge or tried to take a charge, and he ended up hurting himself again. So I don't know what it was, but hopefully it's just a day-to-day thing. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm sure I would have liked to seen Ayton get some more rebounds, but Nurkic, he's a good center. He's a big guy, and he can be tough to kind of out rebound, and that's kind of something I mentioned too, that the Suns might have to. It's great to see Mikal picking it up. I would have liked to see Cam Johnson do a little bit more. Maybe it's just a little bit more that they want to keep Cam out ready for the quick 3-pointer if they can get the offensive rebound, kick it out to him. Mikal can kind of come in and crash and make the easy 2 a little bit easier. But I want to see Shamet get back. I never thought I'd say that, but I want to see Shamet get back. Just somebody with a little bit more firepower to add to that bench unit, because it's like sending out everybody that comes off the bench. I feel like is for defensive purposes. Or they're just like an energy guy, with the exception of maybe Lee, who can hit a few threes. But Payne's in there to let Chris Paul, get a little bit more energy back, and Jock to help Ayton kind of energize himself. And then the rest are just, okay, we're going to go in there and we're going to try and stop the other guys from scoring. And I think it might have been on the Suns jam session that talked about it, but there was something about how essentially the starters are going to have to build leads because the bench units are going to come in and try to slow down the other team, their comeback attempt, because they're not going to be able to extend it.
Right. Exactly. That is the difference right there. And I'm actually, look, we've tried the Jock experiment for 2 games. We might try it for another 10, 6, 8, 10, whatever. But I really think Dario Saric is the key to that second unit being able to recover. If y'all remember the 2021 season where the Suns got significantly better quickly, a lot of those games were Chris Paul and the starting lineup were struggling because they were trying to figure each other out. And the bench was the guys that got them back into it. And that was Cam Payne as your point guard, but with Dario Saric as his big. And I think Dario is still the key to unlocking that second unit, because you're right. You're right, Jake. That second unit's not going to give up a lot of scoring, but they're definitely going to stop the other team from scoring. It's just that they're going to hold the line. And that's part of the problem. Although the second team is what gave up that 16-2 run to what's his name, C Wood on Wednesday. Yes. Big Warthog. Thank you. I was, as Jake was talking, I was doing a search on my own. It was tailbone officially. Monty Williams said that taking that charge, he landed and hurt his tailbone. Cam Johnson, he's had aches and pains, nicks and knacks and knocks. Hopefully he'll be able to just get used to playing again this year. I don't know, but he is definitely a guy, Cam Johnson, who just cannot stay healthy. Ted Lubin, here we go. Dario, power forward. You guys just live for 1990s play. I don't understand. No, Dario's not going to start.
Hassan Whiteside is still unsigned, Dave. We can go get him.
Put him at
the mid-level exception. Yes.
Put him at
the
power
Twin
forward.
Towers. It's working in Minnesota. It's working in Minnesota.
Whew. This love of playing a big lumbering guy at power forward. I don't know. But Dario can spot time at power forward, but he's really a center in today's game. He's really a center. Frank was never a power forward either. Sawbucks, come on, folks. You're still stuck in the 90s. Frank was never a power forward. He was always the backup center.
Except
for there was one, 3 years ago, there's one little stretch where Monty put Ayton and Frank together in a starting lineup, and the Suns did pretty well. Okay, guys, but that was 3 years ago. And that was middle of the regular season. That was not going to win you a bunch of games.
So I'll share this story, Dave. So last night I ran into the coach of the Iowa Wolves and around dinner time, and we were having a couple cocktails, and I said, so is this Minnesota experiment really going to work? I mean, 2 bigs in there. And he goes, we did it last year. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, Jared Vanderbilt can't shoot. And we played him at power forward, and he was a good rebounder and defensive guy. He goes, Gobert just does that better. And he goes, but essentially Karl Anthony Towns was playing, the 4 in that position, because Vanderbilt oftentimes would play just down low. That's where he could make his baskets.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same. I just don't think it's the same. And by the way, the Wolves lost to the Jazz on Friday night.
I did not know the Jazz were going to be so good.
The Jazz didn't know they were going to be so good either. Danny Ainge is like, damn, I got to make more trades.
Exactly.
They have too many veterans still from those trades they made to send away Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland and then Rudy Gobert to the Wolves. I don't think that experiment's going to work. Karl Anthony Towns was still the primary big man. I don't care what you say about Jared Vanderbilt. No, they weren't really doing that last year. That's my take. They're not going to be better than last year. I think they're going to be about the same. They might be better in the regular season, but they're still going to be a first round out.
Ooh. Well, let me ask you, since you clearly love the thought of 2 bigs playing together, could Payne, Shamet, Lee, and Jock play with Dario? And you have a Dario and Jock lineup essentially, because they both can stretch the floor. and hit threes. And the other three guys can all hit good shots too, deep shots. So I think that could actually work as a bench unit. I mean, the likelihood of all five of them on the floor together for any length of time is going to be low. But I think that could potentially work. I mean, if Dario unlocks campaign, we saw the preseason where Shamet actually looked efficient in one game, and Jock was playing with him, and maybe Jock unlocks Shamet.
So everyone is, Jock might unlock Shamet. We'll see. Everyone in the chat is suddenly jumping on the Dario at four part and having more size in the lineup. I don't think you guys look, it's a 5-man game. If you take out the guy who can stretch the floor and pull the defense around in different spots and you replace him with another big, a second big next to DA, you get worse in another area of basketball. You just do. Torrey Craig, people don't like because he can't score, but he can defend really well on the perimeter. Dario cannot. If you guys are frustrated about Chris Paul getting blown by all the time, Dario gets blown by too. Sorry, but it just is what it is. That's why he needs to be the big out there playing in the paint. He can do 5-minute stretches, 3-minute stretches at power forward. I do want to see that, but I mostly want to see him as the backup center. It's not building blocks. You just don't add another guy. You can't go 6 guys on the court, 7 guys on the court, 8 guys on the court and shore up all of your deficiencies. That's why you need multi-talented guys out there. And you have to, Dario does not space better than Craig Thunderstones. No. Spacing doesn't mean standing. Spacing means you're pulling the defender out there away from the rim. That's what spacing is. Just because Dario stands out by the three-point line doesn't mean anyone's going to defend him because he hasn't shot over 33% on threes in a while. He's just not that guy. When he was younger, okay, hello, they're getting blown by all day and night. Well, you know what? You're not making it any better by putting Dario out there and just giving up the chance of not getting blown by. Guess who wasn't getting blown by? Torrey. So you guys got to get – I understand. You just want to win every game by 20 points.
This is a hot rant. This is a hot rant. I'm going to –
building blocks of just putting in more guys to shore up every hole you've got.
Get him, Dave.
Then you spring other holes. One of my favorite comments was Igor Kokoshkov. Igor Kokoshkov as the new coach of the 2018-19 Suns, and the Suns were getting killed in every game, and he just started laughing, and he goes, well, because the starting lineup was getting killed, so why not put this bench guy into the starting lineup? Okay, fine. Put the bench guy in the starting lineup. The bench starts getting killed because the bench sucked, and the other guy you wanted in the starting lineup now isn't coming off the bench anymore. Guess what? That's kind of happening right now, by the way. Now and what Igor said is you plug one hole and 2 more spring free. That's the problem, is you can't just keep adding. It's not building blocks, guys. Craig shouldn't even be in the NBA. Thunderstones, you play defense. You play against Torrey Craig. All right. Come on.
I was going to say, Craig's not doing too bad. I mean, he's only getting 10, 15 minutes a game. I mean, he's putting the ball in the basket when he can, and he is playing tough defense. He's a poor man's version Mikal Bridges, maybe a little bigger.
Well, he's just a guy who's not going to lose you games by himself, but he's certainly not going to win them. And the things we notice, the things we remember is how many shots did you take and how many shots did you make? Right. Torrey is not impressive in that area. And so people aren't happy with him, which is just continues to blow my mind how everyone just gives Mikal Bridges a pass for 5 years offensively because Suns Twitter absolutely loves Mikal Bridges. And that's why we're all giving him a pass. But anyway, I'm going to go.
So what do you think about Dario at 3?
Let's put Dario at 2. If he's a spacer
Point
guy,
Dario.
Why not have him backing up Devin Booker? Point Dario. Let's go with that. He could see over the defense at least.
You know what's amazing about this whole rant that you went on Dario is you were saying
he could see over the defense.
You started this thing by saying, I think Dario needs to play Jock's minutes and be that big off the bench. And then since then, it's been the rundown of Dario Saric because people are like, yeah, maybe play
as the
together.
One big, he's great. As the second big, he's not.
That was an epic rant. That There's a shades of Espo thrown in there.
We're gonna find. I'm gonna lobby for Dario to play point guard for the Suns. Why not? Because there's one little tiny thing he might do better than Chris Paul. So let's just additive. It's all building blocks.
Well, Chris Paul doesn't unlock campaign, so I mean, you might be onto something there.
He certainly doesn't. Move campaign into the starting lineup with Dario, and then they can unlock each other in the starting lineup, and the Suns will win every game. Let's go.
There's so many locks that we have to unlock on this team. That's the challenge.
This is why there's so few Devin Bookers out there. Why there's so few Chris Pauls out there, because those guys can play so many different ways and bring so many different things to, and that's why top 5 guys win NBA championships. That's why there's only a few guys who are real difference makers in the NBA, is because almost every roster has holes. If you think the Suns have a lot of holes and they're still going to be second or third in the West, guess how many holes the other teams have? And that's why I'm talking about the Rudy Gobert thing. Rudy's going to spring more holes than he fills. That's why his teams always come up short. I did an analysis. I did a quick look back of the Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. Let's just even narrow it down to all just Rudy Gobert history. 6 straight years in the playoffs. Who has more playoff wins? 6 years Rudy Gobert or 2 years Devin Booker? Who's got more playoff wins?
That's Booker, isn't it?
By far. Booker has 50% more playoff wins in only 2 playoff runs than Rudy Gobert had over 6 years. And that dude won Defensive Player of the Year in at least 2 of those.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's in 1998, Gobert would have more playoff wins.
Yeah, well, this isn't 1998.
Well,
so
Dave,
for that, this whole topic started with the question of, will Minnesota be better or worse? And I actually think they're going to be basically the same, but they can't win any more playoff series.
Well, Dave, let me ask you, because I like how Jam said it. So in conclusion, the roster is constructed like crap. Deal with it. And then
no, it's not constructed like crap. There's only
so
many NBA players out there who, look, the Suns are still going to be one of the best teams in the league. That just means everyone else's roster is like crap too. No, you can only put 5 guys out there at once. Jesus, people.
I'm sorry, this is too good.
Chastity belt, son. Someone had razors in their coffee this morning. Me?
Let's show them your softer side, Dave. Who has been the most impressive bench player, new addition to the Suns? Who's impressed you the most so far?
So I think speaking of guys with stones and chastity belts and all that. Anyway, Damian Lee's got some stones. That dude just turned 30 this week. To celebrate his 20, he can say in his 20s he hit a game winner. He did that on Wednesday night. Turned 30 the next day. Played well again on Friday night. He's averaging 10 points a game now off the bench. Damian Lee's a big shot maker. And I really enjoy watching him play because he does a lot of little things. He got some contested rebounds on Friday. He's obviously made some big shots. I've been impressed with Damian Lee. I think, look, he is not a guy you want to play big minutes, but if you need someone like the Suns have used him in the fourth quarter of each of the last 2 games, he is a guy who can help you win fourth quarters. And that's really nice to have off the bench. What did you think of him?
Yeah, I mean, he would definitely be my choice for, best new addition. It's funny though. You mentioned you don't want to play him big minutes, and I'm looking through the box scores, and against the Mavericks, 20 minutes, and against the Blazers, 31. So is that going to be a concern moving forward?
I think still they like Landry Shamet a little bit better. I personally like Damian Lee better than Landry Shamet already. But that's obviously overreactions from 2 games, but I do think Damian Lee has potential to be more impactful than Landry Shamet has been for the Suns.
Well, maybe if the Jazz keep winning, that's going to drive down their trade demands.
I know, right? Please take Jordan Clarkson from us. Please.
We can't keep winning.
So since Dario's not playing at all and Landry hasn't played at all because of the hip, basically just adding Jordan Clarkson to the lineup would be a hell of a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not turn that away. Although I will say going back to my earlier rant, Jordan Clarkson gives up as many points as he scores, so he's not a net positive. But he'd be fun to watch, and he would get points on the board. And if that's what you're looking for, then that's the guy to get.
I'm actually, it's funny, and well, let me ask if we're good to talk about the rest of the association now.
No, not yet. Let's
Okay.
finish up. We're going to talk quarter 3. We're going to talk about the rest of the association because it's been fun. Sorry, I just want to finish up the Friday game. I had some other observations from the Friday game. Okogie, I forget how it's pronounced. He looks like a really good defensive player. He is worse than Torrey on offense. If you don't like Torrey Craig on offense, then you're not going to like Josh Okogie either. But defensively, he's impressive. He got a couple of steals. PLR said that CP is terrible on defense. He is when he's getting run by. But he also got 5 steals in the first half on Friday night against Portland, but he didn't get any in the second half. But he's still the smartest dude on the floor. But that's tough to deal with. And then my only other comment is Cam Payne isn't quite as bad as he was this past year. He's been okay. He's just not a difference maker for that second unit. So there really isn't a difference maker on that second unit. There isn't. Not only do the Suns not have a consistent third scorer, they don't really have anyone coming off the bench who can lead you on a run. That's you talked about that earlier, and that's why I hope Darius Arch, as the one big, not the second big, might be really good in that second unit to help get guys going. So yeah, you're not gonna jam. I don't like Craig on offense. Well, the more you watch Okogie, you're not gonna like him either. Okay, now any other comments on the Friday game? The Suns lost in overtime.
Well, and I know you'd mentioned a little bit about the defenses playing zone against the Suns, and I mean,
yes.
Zone traditionally is.
Portland played. I don't know how many times Portland played zone almost the whole second half.
And honestly, I mean, it's not a bad strategy in the sense that the reason why zone kind of fell out of fashion was because the Warriors and everybody, when they started moving faster and shooting more threes, the zone it invites more outside shooting, right? Because it's the idea that maybe you're not as big, so you got more guys helping out and down low. The Suns don't take a lot of threes. Paul's not, a very high volume, highly efficient 3-point shooter. Booker every shot always looks like it's going in, and he's gotten a little better at it finally on the threes. But as we talked about, Mikal hasn't hit one yet, so unless Cam Johnson's going to stay on the floor, it's going to be up to those two. I mean, or occasionally when Ayton's allowed to shoot a 3 too. But I'm surprised if we don't see more zone moving forward as kind of the recipe against us until we start, making people scared to allow us to have those 3-point shots.
Yeah, the Suns are definitely going to have to solve that zone, and taking more outside shots, also flashing somebody to the to the top of the key also really helps, as kind of like the same thing as a trap almost, except there's more defenders closer to you. So they're not quite comfortable with DA making that catch. They want him to be the dude who catches the pass from the guy who catches that first shot. The Suns haven't quite figured that out yet. So they're going to have to solve for the zone, though, because everyone's going to start playing zone against them. So that's a really good observation. My final thoughts on the Suns coming out of those games basically is that this is a scrappy team. They're figuring it out. They're changing their offense a little bit. They're changing the focus. And I just want to do a quick stock up, stock down on the roster. And so we can point out who's been impressive and who hasn't so far in the early going. Devin Booker, is he better, worse, or the same than he has been than you thought he was going to be in these first 2 games? Everybody can vote in the chat as well.
Yeah, he's
better, worse, or same.
He's that Amazon Tesla stock, that blue chip where you think it's already too much to put money into, but it keeps growing over time. Booker's looking great. So
Booker stock up. I agree with that. Definitely, I think Booker has been better than I thought he would be in the first 2 games. DeAndre Ayton, stock up, stock down?
Another stock up for me. I feel like I'm Jim Cramer now. Like I want to hit the buttons like whammy, jammy. Like, wow. Yeah, no, buy this one. Definitely. No, great value. Hot girls are here. Nice. See, stock up for hot girls being here.
Yeah, we got to get rid of the hot girls. We don't want hot girls around here.
No hot girls.
What are you thinking?
This is a Suns podcast.
This is a basketball podcast. There ain't no hot girls around. Come on. And we don't even want hot girls. It's Saturday morning. Come on. All right.
So no Dario with Jock. No hot girls. Dave, I agree with the commenters. What? Who ruined your breakfast this morning?
Chris Paul, stock up, stock down.
I'm going to say stock is flat, not down, not up. Can I do that one? Yeah. I think I'm okay with him being, the old wise man out there and just, setting people up and getting steals, like you said, smartest player on the court. And I can see why they played him, in the overtime. He looks like he's always in control. You get a little bit of that nervousness with campaign out there. But, he hasn't totally wowed me, so I'm saying flat right now.
Okay, I'm going to go stock down on Chris Paul. Mikal Bridges, stock up, stock down.
I'm going to say it's a slight up. I think he's got a little bit more to go offensively. But I mean, as you point out, the assists, the rebounds, he's doing all the little things. Maybe it's because he was tired of the Sean Marion comparisons. He just thought, I'll go be that.
Yeah, I'm actually a stock up on Mikal. I know I complain about his offense, and he's not really a type A scorer, and he's not their consistent number 3. But man, his rebounding has been very impressive to me, and he's playing defense just like he always has. So he's taken on the other team's best defender all the time. So I definitely think he's a stock up for sure. Okay, next guy, Cam Johnson, stock up or stock down?
That's the stock down right now. That's his tailbone and cramping. I mean, I hope he doesn't have that Anthony Davis disease of just constantly breaking down now that he's got a shot to be impressive, but he's got to stay on the floor.
Yeah, Cam Johnson stock down right now for me. He just recently partnered up with Flower Child, which is a healthy eating place, and he's got his own dish there, and anyone who buys that dish could win a signed Cam Johnson. But my first reaction was stop eating so much dang. I don't know. He needs more water. He needs more fluids, not more food. So that dude cramping in the first 2 games of the year, that's not really a great sign. Let's get him healthy, get him right, and let's see how he can do, because he is that shooter that the Suns need. Basically, the Suns have been without Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, and Landry Shamet these first 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, Dario as the one big. Okay, so let's go. Let's see. That's the whole starting lineup. Now let's do a quick run through the bench. Jock Landale, stock up or stock down versus expectations coming in?
I had low expectations, so I actually think he's done well. I think, as you point out, Dario could probably do better. So I'd say stock up, but he was a penny stock to begin with.
I'm going to say stock down because my expectations were a little bit too high for him. He had just been killed on drives to the hoop. They set him up on a pick and roll, and he's just getting killed, and he's fouling like crazy. He's been in foul trouble both games. So my stock is down on him. Campaign.
Stock's flat, better than, I remember, I think you talked about this coming into last season about how Campaign did so well during our championship run. Would he return to the mean? And actually, I think he was worse than his mean, but now I think he's back to his average. So I think it's kind of a flat stock.
All right. And you're being pretty neutral today, man. Everyone's getting these.
Well, 2 games. Yeah.
Being neutral. I am in overreact mode. You're in not overreact mode. That's fine. That's good. I think his stock is a little bit up, actually. He looks a little bit better to me. He doesn't look quite as frantic, and maybe it's just because he's not trying so many crazy ass layups from 10 feet away. That's trying to make it a layup, even though he's still 10 feet from the basket. So I'm going to go stock up a little bit on him. Damian Lee.
Ooh, yeah, it's definitely up. I had
Mhm.
zero expectations of him even getting off the bench, and he's already way blown that away.
Dude was second on the team in rebounds last night with 6, tied with DA, because DA was being put into pick and roll traps and all that all night, and so he was being taken away from the rim by the Suns' own defensive scheme.
yeah, I didn't even know Lee was going to be able to bring something like that. I really just thought he was going to be like a poor man's Curry, just maybe a little bigger. But he throws his body around and can body
Mhm.
people up.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And Torrey Craig.
Flat. I mean, my expectations for Craig are not high, and I think he does what he needs to. We're not going to get the Craig from 2 years ago. But you know, there's yeah, one comedian explained this once about political candidates that he says, I kind of like politicians, and everyone's like, oh, so and so is basically the worst person in the whole world, and they go, but then when they get in there and they haven't like done any like heinous crimes, I'm like, oh, look, they're pretty good. They've beaten expectations. They're not doing terrible things. So that's kind of where I'm at with Craig. Is he doesn't do a lot of terrible things. He's Torrey Craig.
Yeah, just watching Torrey Craig play this many minutes reminds me how much I'd rather Cam Johnson was healthy, Jay Crowder was happy, and Landry Shamet's
This many minutes, he's got 10 minutes a game.
Yeah, I know, but this many, that's too many.
too many minutes.
But 10. You're right. You're echoing what I said earlier. Craig doesn't hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't lose games for you. He just doesn't win them either. And so obviously I'd like somebody a little bit better.
Yeah. His job right now is to help keep Cam. Well, Johnson gets to stay fresh because he doesn't stay on the court. But, helping Mikal's minutes were a ton last year too. So if he can come in and, as you say, just kind of hold things together a little bit, that's all I'm asking for him.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. Sunders is having some fun in the chat, but he's sounding like he's really spiraling. It's like watching the 2017 Suns. Dude, it's been too long for you. You've totally forgotten how much of a joke that team was.
Dragon Bender's coming back, man.
So you guys are, I've been overall for the Suns. I'm happy with their spirit. I know they're in the middle of transition and trying to figure stuff out, but I'm happy with their spirit.
Okay. Only Craig, you mean? Only Craig.
Really needed. Yeah. Oh, no, only Craig. Okay, good. Thanks, Thunders.
I was going to say, I remember those dark days of Sun Solar Panel where you guys would be like, okay, let's not talk about the draft. Let's talk about game 20. How are we feeling, guys? It's like,
actually, let's not talk about the draft. Let's talk about game 2. Because people were already planning for the draft. Is crazy. Yeah. Thank you, Sunders. All right. Yeah, I am happy. I am happy with how the Suns are playing because I was worried more about their spirit, and I like that they're trying different things. And I think that Devin Booker closing as point guard is something we're going to see more often, definitely than last year, which was 0. And definitely something that is a good go-to for the Suns. And they do have, at least Monty is trying. Monty is adjusting. He's trying new things. Some of that's not going to work. I mean, he said after game 1, he's like, man, I felt bad for those bench guys because they kept subbing them out after 2 minutes. Remember that second quarter? The Suns got 13 deep on guys who played. And all 13 played at some point in that second quarter. It was wild. So he's trying different things. Things will get better. This team's going to win 55 plus games. The question is, who are they going to be by playoff time? And I do agree that they need more players, better tertiary players by playoff time. But for now, they'll be just fine. So yeah, and they are intentionally utilizing Aiden more, and I love that. Aiden being a go-to guy in the fourth quarter is important because he scores. He is efficient. It's okay. It's great for Aiden to be touching the ball in the fourth quarter, and he'll get better at it for sure. All right, Jake, let's talk about the rest of the association.
Well,
I know we're an hour 14 into this fucking thing, but we got 5 minutes. No, we're not going to do Okogie. Let's go rest of the association. So who has impressed you this week?
Oh, this week? Timberwolves.
Impressed you? They're 1-1. They lost to the Jazz. How can that be impressive?
I know, but that first game was impressive. I'll say that.
They lost to the Jazz.
Not in the first game.
The only time they played the Jazz, they lost to them.
Jazz are 2-0.
Yeah,
undefeated. They're going on a run. Danny Ainge
Denver lost to the Jazz.
That's right. Oh gosh, yeah. No, who's impressed me? Paulo Banchero with the Magic. Watching him actually fill it up. Actually, the rookies in general. A lot of the rookies from this draft class have really been playing well. Was it Jaden Ivey and with Detroit Pistons? And so I've kind of seen some individual players. I can't say anything about any particular teams that have really blown me away yet. But the Lakers
Hello
look
says
horrible.
the Warriors look impressive. Okay, game 1. But they lost to the team that lost to the Jazz last night. They lost to Denver. They were down 20 in the first half. That's not that impressive to me. Ted Lubin, the Pelicans. Have you seen anything about the Pelicans? They look freaking good.
Zion
They've been playing bad teams, but they look good.
Yeah. No, that's. I was wondering how Ingram and Zion were going to fit together after a year off, but they're playing well together.
They're definitely playing well together. I think the Pelicans are going to be a tough out, and I think Willie Green is a hell of a coach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But what do you think about that? Those Lakers, our friends in our division with us.
The Lakers are already in the place I thought they would be by midseason, which is hell.
Yep. I feel like the fact that there's articles out there just being like, well, LeBron's going to chase stats and record breaking for the rest of the season is
Jesus. Anthony Davis looks like a shell of his former self, offensively anyway. I guess he's been good on defense, but man, the Lakers are not good. Who's the Lakers' third best player? Yep. Okay. That's the only answer.
It's Westbrook, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, yeah.
No, Westbrook's awful. He was 0 for 11 in the
second game. In the first game, he was pretty good though. He was 0 for 11. I think Pat Bev was like 1 for 6 too. I mean,
if we add up 5 of our tertiary players, we could get a Westbrook. Is that what you want?
No, actually, I was going to ask you. Okay, here's the hot trade idea of the day. But it doesn't involve the Suns. So if you are the Lakers, do you ship out the 2 first-round draft picks that are coming around in like year 8 or 9 to the Jazz for Conley, Clarkson, and I think you can get Vanderbilt in that with the numbers.
Suns tried for Vanderbilt.
No.
Jazz don't want to trade him.
Okay. So then. Oh gosh, who else do they have? Conley, Clarkson, and Rudy Gay. Would you, if you're the Lakers, would you make that trade?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about for the Suns. Why are we talking about a Lakers trade?
I know, because
Dude.
that would shift things around. The Suns love to hate the Lakers, but and that would actually disrupt because we were looking to go after Vanderbilt too. But would you make that trade if you're the Jazz and the Lakers?
If the Jazz definitely want to lose as many games as possible for Scoot Henderson or Victor Wembanyama, then they probably would make a trade like that at some point, although they won't be happy with the Lakers' first-round picks. But that's all we're not going to talk about the Lakers anymore. Let's stop that. What about a Jazz trade to the Suns?
No.
Jazz trade to the Suns. So they won't trade Jared Vanderbilt away. So any young guys, so it'd have to be veterans. I'm out on Mike Conley. He's just too small. He's like basically Chris Paul. I'm out on I don't know. I've never been a fan of Jordan Clarkson. You'll get your points from him, guys, but he's also going to give up as many points as he scores. And he was, I just don't. They don't have a great feel, those Jazz players from all those years of getting knocked out of the playoffs. All right. Let's see. Around the association, anyone else impress you? That jumped out this week.
76ers?
Impress? They look weird. They look weird. They've been
who's definitely not impressed me is the Nets. Can
Yeah.
KD better go back and say, actually, fire the coach and general manager again? Or
Yeah,
I'm outta here.
I think the first coach going to be fired is Steve Nash, and I think KD will be traded by midseason because things are not going to look good. They are not looking good in
Oh
Brooklyn.
gosh, and what happened to Ben Simmons? I mean, is he what you thought he'd be coming back?
I think they're still saying he's trying to round himself back into NBA playing shit, but the dude's still just young. He's only 26. I mean, how much time does he need to get back into playing shape? But
Right.
we'll see. I think he's lost his mojo. At least long enough for Kevin Durant to demand a trade.
What have you seen the Grizzlies at all?
Oh, Grizzlies, of course, are impressive. John Morant, Jesus Christ, 49 points in 30 minutes on Friday night. Of course, I think they beat a really bad team, but it's just good for them.
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
That was a
I thought
moped
that was
outside.
you turning. I thought that was the start of a Manscaped ad. We're well past that,
Oh,
man.
I was gonna say I do miss your Manscaped ads. Those are great. No, the Bucks too, without Chris Middleton, and they took care of business 2 nights ago against the 76ers. They're off to a 2-0 start. I was a little surprised now that I look at the standings that the Celtics have kept it together even with their odd coaching situation going on there.
Yeah, they haven't faced adversity yet, and that's when your coach really makes a big difference. Obviously, scheme-wise, they're doing well. They're playing well. Good for them. Good for Missoula. But, you just don't know until they hit a rough patch on how they're going to respond to their coach. But good for them that they started well. Yes, they had every excuse, every reason not to start well. So that's good on them.
Ooh, so let me ask you then, bigger surprise that the Wizards are undefeated or that the Jazz are undefeated?
Oh, Jazz for sure. The Wizards actually are trying to they're supposed to win games. So good for them. Good for the Wizards. They've got Porzingis. They've got Kyle Kuzma. They've got Bradley Beal. They actually might contend for a playoff spot this year, although I think they'll still come up short. But definitely, the Jazz being 2-0 and Portland being 2-0 are surprises. Portland looked like a team that can win 40 games last night. They did.
And we've seen how many years, even before the disastrous decade we had, Lillard being with the Blazers as long as he has been now, it's like I've got mad respect for that guy. Like I feel like I've seen so many games of Suns versus him. And
he was prime Dame
how he does
on
it.
Friday night. Prime Dame.
I mean, how many? Let's see. He finished with
41
how many points? Jeez. Yeah,
including the 2 free throws that put them up. Yeah.
I mean,
sorry, the 2 free throws that tied it up, and then it was the other dude who made the shot to put them up.
So trade Chris Paul for Dame Lillard and see what happens.
You know what? I think the Portland is not going to want to win 40 games because that's the worst place to be in the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
You either need to give yourself a chance to win the lottery, or you've got to give yourself a chance to be a strong playoff team. And a ton of teams are going to sell off by the trade deadline. So I would not be surprised if Portland trades Dame.
Oh, that would be so hard on that fan base if they did that. Because, I mean, that guy's done nothing but just I want to stay in Portland. I want to build a team in Portland.
Yeah, but he also, toward the end of his career, might want to win some games, and they're not set up to win games.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, let's preview the next week of games for the Suns because then we have to see how we did. So I predicted the Suns would be 1-1 after 3 games, and I was right. It didn't exactly happen the way I thought, but it never does. So good on the Suns for winning against the Mavericks. Now, tomorrow night, Sunday night, they play at the Clippers. Tuesday, they host the Warriors. And Friday, they host those hot Pelicans. Do you think the Suns are going to win? How do you think they're going to do in these 3 games? 1 on the road, 2 at home, but all 3 teams look really tough.
Yeah. I could see us losing all 3. we are as good as all these teams, so I won't feel bad if we do go like 1-2, as some of the guys in the chat are saying. But I think we beat the. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think who's the easiest of the upcoming teams to beat. It might be the Warriors, which sounds weird. The defending champions to me might be the best matchup wise. I've only seen the one Clippers game, and Kawhi was coming off the bench, so I'm not quite sure what kind of a setup that's going to be moving forward.
Jam, next Saturday's show is going to be a mess. Yeah, it is. Okay, so you're predicting what? Give me a prediction.
I'll go. I'll be optimistic. Let's say 2-1.
All right, so I predicted 3-2 after 5 games. On a post on Bright Side of the Sun. And I'm going to stick with 3-2, which means they're going to go 2-1. And what my prediction is that they were going to lose on the road to the Clippers. So they'll be 1-2, but then they'll win the 2 home games this coming week. The Pelicans have looked better than I thought they would. I made that prediction before the season started. So I'm a little bit leery, but I do think the Suns will beat the Warriors on Tuesday. In Phoenix. I think there's going to be a lot of energy, a lot of support from the fan base and all that. I don't think now SDHX says the Pels and Clips will want it more. No, they don't. They're not going to want it more than the Suns. The Suns have a lot to prove, and they've shown in these last 2 games. But those teams are talented, and they can beat the Suns just on their talent. The Pelicans are better than they were in the playoffs because they have Zion Williamson playing like an all-star all of a sudden. And Brandon Ingram is picking up right where he left off. So the Pelicans are going to be a really, really tough out. The Clippers having Kawhi back, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I do think I'm going to predict 2-1, but I would not be surprised with 1-2 or 0-3. And it won't be the end of the world even if they go 0-3 this week. This isn't the time for the Suns to be at the Suns are not at their peak. They're just not.
So you're thinking Suns beat Clippers and the Warriors?
No, I had predicted Warriors and Pelicans, but now I'm teetering on the Pelicans pick.
Okay.
So yeah, I had predicted they would lose to the Clippers on Sunday in LA. So really the Suns to make this a successful week, they'll have to beat the Clippers on Sunday. So we'll see how that goes.
Gotcha.
Cam J defending Zion should be interesting. Ted Lubin. Oh, Jesus. Cam flies like a pinball against anybody. Imagine Zion hitting him.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah,
we're gonna need a lot of Torrey Craig on Zion.
Oh, geez.
A lot of Dario.
We need to... Can you imagine? Zion will just spin right past Dario and be like, oh, wow, look at that. Yeah. So we'll see. All right. This has been fun. Thank you for joining the show today, everybody. We're almost an hour and a half in. Jake, thank you for giving me your time this morning. I appreciate it. Big thanks to PLR for joining us. Jake, you can find him on Twitter at Fallen Founder. You can find me, Dave King, on Twitter at Dave King NBA. And you can find all my writing, if you'd rather read than listen. You can find all my writing at brightsideofthesun.com. We've got a great team. We cover the Suns 24/7, 365 days a year. And you'll get everything you need from that. So big props. Thank you so much for joining us today in the chat, everybody. So many people joined us. I really appreciate it. And we will talk to you next week. And everybody, you might just have to take a breather before that show starts because otherwise it's going to be fire.
Dario and Jock, Twin Towers. Let's see it this week.
All right. See y'all later. Thanks, everyone.